tell me when to start and then we'll start.
Okay, okay.
If you are ready, then we will start.
Okay, I will just. Sir, we can start.
Okay. Good evening, all Panchayat Premis. Welcome to this national webinar on this day, Panchayat Day. As all of you know, this is the 28th anniversary of the 73rd Amendment. The 73rd Amendment 1992, which formally came into practice on 24th April 1993. And Kila is actually still proud of one of the institutes which held the national conference on the 25th anniversary of the 73rd Amendment, with all the dignitaries, all the champions of Panchayat Raj flocking together in Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala. So when we still have the reminiscence of all those 2-day workshop, 2-day conference. But then this time, and the last year also, we had the similar problem with the COVID-19 issues, but still this also provides us an opportunity to get maximum people onto this and also keep all these things recorded and on live and for history also. So that's also an advantage in one way. Anyway, let us move on to this program. We have with us Sri S.M. Vijayanand. I won't venture into introducing him to this August list of participants. So Vijayanand sir is here with us. He will actually talk to us on the path ahead, especially touching on to the history as well as the present crisis and the post-COVID situation. I hope he will actually talk about the path ahead of the Panchayat Raj in India. And then we have with us Dr. W.R. Reddy. Again, I don't want to introduce him separately. All of you know who has actually championed the cause of Panchayat Raj, especially bringing NIRD, National Institute of Rural Development, into NIRDPR, the National Institute of Rural Development and Panchayat Raj, because you can't have rural development without panchayats. So that was a major transition which happened during his time in practice and in theory and all. So welcome Vijayan sir and welcome Reddy sir to this national webinar. Then we have a large group of Panchayat Premis here watching through various media. See, we have the Zoom link, so those are connected through the Zoom link. We have also people connected through the Facebook and also through the YouTube. Welcome all of you to this meeting. What you can do is that some of your comments can be put into the chat box in the Zoom or in the Facebook or in the YouTube. We will actually collect them and document them and probably work on it and see whether we can have it as a document for the future. So welcome all of you for putting in your ideas onto the chat box in all these platforms. Welcome all of you once again. Thank you all for joining us today evening. Welcome Vijayan sir, and over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joy. My dear friends, it gives me great pleasure to talk to you on the 20th anniversary of the 73rd Amendment. I've been talking to you several times, so you will know most of my points. And as we discussed last time, during the freedom struggle, there was a discourse for national self-government, and the British were willing to give a local self-government. So I think we lost a lot because the Indian freedom fighters, except Gandhiji, didn't realize the importance of panchayat, and that became worse with a controversy, which has a lot of truth, with Dr. Ambedkar fearing that the traditional Indian village panchayats will kind of crush the SC, ST and other backward people. But I always felt that if Gandhiji's advice had been followed and India had vibrant panchayats right at the dawn of independence, all the freedom fighters who didn't go on to become MPs and MLAs would have gone back to their villages and become the heads of their villages, and probably Indian development would have taken a different direction. But there is no point in wishing that history should have been different. That's very dangerous also in the current times. Then continuously it has been a kind of a serial tragedy. We missed it in we missed it in the constitution. We missed it after the Balwant Mehta committee, and there was some political will because of the Chinese war, the two wars with the Pakistan, then the whole drought and food crisis, the shift to technology. Then 77 Janata government revived it, but they fell very quickly. And in the 80s, Rajiv Gandhi brought it for the first time into the political discourse, which again didn't bear fruit. 73rd Amendment, which we are celebrating today, was not pushed, though it was enacted beyond a point. And then we lost opportunities. Then in and particularly in 91, we went in for big bang reforms. We forgot about governance reforms. Then 2005, Narega, it didn't take off at all from the view of strengthening Panchayat Raj, though it is the only act, development act, which strengthens Panchayat Raj. And on it goes. And there's a lot of, it's absent in the political discourse, more so in recent years. Practically in India. How does political discourse come? Basically, in PM's address, budget speech, and the president's address. You'll find it very difficult to trace it for quite some time, not just the last 7 or 8 years. It is also absent in the governance discussion, academic discussion, media interest, even legal appreciation of local governments is fairly weak. And unfortunately, much of civil society is keeping away from Gram Panchayats, though there is a slight change post-COVID. So, and there are very few champions. So probably the youngest champion of the civil service will be Dr. Reddy. Raghunandan will be 2-3 years senior to you. So there are not many real vibrant champions. And tragedy is, it is the weakest and poorest in the, it is weakest in the poorest parts of India, and also the law and order districts, and also the ecologically degraded district. And I don't want to assess performance. That's not my task, because I'm supposed to suggest a way forward. But when you assess it, all the constitutional institutions, except one, that is the Union Finance Commission, have failed to achieve their mandate, right from Gram Sabha to District Planning Committee, State Finance Commission, and all that. State election commissions, by and large, are okay. Most of them have held their ground, and the judiciary has supported them. Fiscal decentralization is pathetic. Now, as per the constitution, all the states should have constituted the 6th Finance Commission in 2019, and only 6 states have done it. And some of them, like Gujarat, are in the 3rd Finance Commission state. So it's a clear violation of the constitution, the core area of giving finances to them. So I can go on and on. I don't want to spend time. The way forward. So I have a term, I call it as is, where is Panchayat Raj? Panchayat Raj is political, and we can't push politics beyond a point. So, but over the years, willy-nilly, states have given some powers, consciously or maybe by default, to their panchayats, particularly in the aftermath of the 73rd Amendment. And I had the occasion to study such the powers, not just the act and rules, which are almost same everywhere in the country, but the government orders and other things in 2-3 states which are not known for Panchayat Raj. And I found surprisingly significant space for Panchayat Raj is there. So instead of asking and waiting for the Big Bang, of course, the Big Bang is something which I would advocate, but that is just wishful thinking in the present moment. Let us push Panchayat Raj on an as is, where is basis, which means you're strengthening the constitutional institutions. So start with the Gram Sabha is critical. Nobody is stopping strengthening of Gram Sabha. I don't think anybody is stopping strengthening of Gram Sabha at higher levels. So it's from the grassroots democracy, what Ambedkar calls social democracy. I will mention how it can be done a little later. strengthening DPC, and in a sense, the Metropolitan Planning Committee, which is absent in metropolitan cities all over India, including Kerala. Strengthening State Finance Commission, which of course the Ministry of Panchayat Raj and Ministry of Urban Development can together do, because many finance commissions don't know how exactly to go about. I've been member of 2 finance commissions and I'm chairing the 6th finance commission. Even in Kerala, we sometimes grope in the dark. So I've been discussing with the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, and they have agreed. So together with the 6th State Finance Commission, we want to develop some technical guidelines, generic guidelines, which can be used by all the finance commissions in future, at drawing on the best practice of different finance commissions. Then, of course, the state election commissions are reasonably strengthened. But here again, there is a very good alliance of the State Election Commission, which is kind of mentored by the Central Election Commission. Now, of course, Central Election Commission itself is under a cloud. So what moral superiority they will have, there are question marks, but still they can lobby, and there are good Supreme Court judgments and state judgments there. Next, now we had some very ugly, violent incidents resulting in the loss of lives of innocent police people. So again, that area, the Naxal areas are coming up. And I strongly believe one of the important antidotes for extremism is PESA, local democracy and local development, which can bring it down. That has been the historic experience all over the world, but we seem to have forgotten PESA, but for some marginal kind of work, that is one area we can do. But these are look beyond our immediate points of action, but something which Government of India promotes, which states have accepted, at least on paper, through government orders and through flow of resources. And interestingly, it made me very happy when 2-3 years ago, Government of India declared the People's Plan campaign from October to December 2018, I think, followed it in 2019, but 2021, they get hit by the COVID. So what they meant was they bring together the resources under the control of local governments. And that is 15 Finance Commission and the MGNRGS. And I think over the next 5 years, they can touch, depending on Narega's thing, but it has to go up in the current context. It can touch about 8 lakh crores, which are at the command mostly of the Gram Panchayats. It's a huge amount. So Gram Panchayats have been languishing for 2 things. Forget powers. Powers can come through funds. The fiscal decentralization can push the functional decentralization. And because people think they have a lot of money, they may hand over functions, but which in one sense purists will object. They are handing over, passing on responsibilities to Panchayat. But once Panchayats perform the responsibilities, probably they can and gain some stature, what I call virtuous circle. Some performance, more functions, it is likely. And another important thing, the advantage of planning. Planning as an entry point was tried only in Kerala and fairly successful. Had we adopted some other path, probably we would not have achieved this result. And what is planning? Planning means every interest group has some expectation from planning. And you can participate, get all the people to participate and participate continuously every year. So participatory planning is a very useful entry point, which we should support. And this with intelligent use of centrally sponsored schemes, which of course is Government of India's job. States can also do something, which if they really do that, I think local governments will have fairly good resources for planning and a good starting point. But something unexpected, though it is one of the most unfortunate events in human history, COVID has given a different dimension to the issue of local governance. They have become the critical front line of governance itself, not just functions transfer. They're looking at disaster, they're looking at public health, they're looking at public distribution, they're looking even in quarantining and protecting people. So This was not consciously devolved. All over India, particularly rural areas. Urban local governments, it's not so spectacular, but rural areas, almost all over India, have come forward without anybody giving them powers, without probably any appeal. They have responded to the local need, to the local tragedy. And in this, there is an alliance with the civil society and the self-help groups. So this is the future of Panchayat Raj I envisage. If this holds, it's tentative now. If this holds, if states realize that you push this partnership, civil society providing technical support, some kind of, basically technical support, the self-help groups providing the human resources for mobilizing the public, and the panchayats leading from the front. And that is a government interface with the people, community based, realizing social contract, friendly, help in need, help close at hand. That is what panchayats have been all over India. And that is now reclaimed the importance of extension, behavioral change in people to combat the disease. So panchayats are now learning, and they are not just an agency, and it goes beyond the transferred functions. That is something which we need to positively use. And in this, probably in my talk of today, the most important thing is the need for a mutually beneficial partnership between the self-help groups and the panchayats, particularly the gram panchayats. Both of them gain. They're equal partners, not one under the other. And the panchayats represent political democracy, and the SHGs represent social democracy. So they can kind of come out with a demand, activate Gram Sabha, activate planning, serve as an outreach for the local governments. You can go on and down, and it is mutually beneficial. That is the most important. Both of them benefit. Panchayats can use them as an extension agency, can use even give services in some parts of India like accounting, computer, and all those things to the SHGs. Sanitation, many all over India, panchayats are given to the SHGs. So they are a service delivery agent, not free, but on an equal footing. Similarly, the SHGs can access this huge resources for the poor, for women. So it's a gender sensitive development potential is there in this SHG Panchayat partnership. And an interesting thing, of which Kerala is a model, but I find even in Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, I find a lot of the SHG people automatically becoming sarpanches and panchas in the Gram Panchayats. In Kerala, I think the latest election is about 70% of the women members are from the Kudumbashree network, right from the city corporation down to the Gram Panchayat, and which means 35% of the local government representatives are from the SHG network. And this is very good for the panchayats to understand people's problems. So it's a win-win kind of situation which we need to push. And another COVID effect is that the local economic development. I'm a strong supporter of Gandhian values, but as local economic development, I thought in 21st century with globalization and one world, local economic development has only limited relevance. But now it has been shown that local economic development is the most important. So you help each other and move out, like Gandhiji said, in circles. So economic development is local, mainly agriculture, small produce, and things of that kind. That is a lesson from COVID, not only in India, in large parts of the world. Now, what we are seeing about oxygen and other things, which shows that some kind of local economic development is very, very relevant. We can't depend on supply chains for everything. Certain things, of course, you can't get it locally. Then that is the most important thing. The second most important point I want to make, public health has become a local government responsibility. Actually, as you know, local governments in the world, modern local governments, originated in the need to provide public health post-industrial revolution. Now it's been realized that that is the thing. Now we have to entrust health as a function, not just because Constitution says it is required. And what the Finance Commission, of course, I am personally against Finance Commission giving specific purpose grants, but when they said health grant of 70,000 crore and says Panchayat will be in the front line, for health service delivery or municipalities, I felt very happy because that's giving a push to state government. If the state health departments and the government of India health department and the ministries intelligently cooperate, then this will push many of these institutions into the hands of panchayats. COVID has already validated that premise, and that will happen. And linked to this, linked to COVID again, is disaster management. Not just health disaster, could be floods, could be drought. Now panchayats have gained the capacity in this by doing COVID. And something coming out of is this is something which we can't add to the constitution, but we can teach the panchayats. Constitution speaks of local economic development and social justice. I am adding a third core function called ecological justice, which is very, very important. Healing the earth, which only, of course, panchayats alone can't do. Now, we must have read in the papers about interesting, surprising response from Joe Biden about climate change. We had given up USA for climate change, but now they have given. So it happens at multiple levels, but local action is very, very important. And related to this is the low cost or no cost development. This was taught to me by my guru, late Mr. V. Ramchandran, who probably authored most of the critical recommendations of the Second Administrative Reforms Commission. He said we should not make panchayats clones of the state or central governments. You can't be clones. You have certain vibrancy which no other tier of government has. You can solve problems just by going and bringing people together. So that is the big advantage, which in Ministry of Panchayat Raj, we coined the word together, low cost or no cost development. So that is something which is the strength of panchayats. And when you go and find out what panchayats are doing, today they would have announced the best panchayats all over India. Find out about them. And they all do this low cost, no cost development and support systems. We need a lot of support systems, human resource, financial resource. Now they have, not in plenty, but enough, much more than expected maybe 5-10 years back. But human resources abysmal. So that is the big challenge. Panchayats can't exist with human resources. You can't exist with temporary staff. Fortunately, the Ministry of Rural Development, not Panchayat Raj, set up a committee under Sumit Bose. I was also a member. Please go through the report. It's a very strong, and Mr. Sumit Bose, for your information, was the Secretary of the Finance Commission, and he was a Secretary of Expenditure. So he is not a Panchayat Raj man. But that report is something which you need, and we need to push. We need to push. And money is there. You don't have to create money for that. Pull together all the administrative expenses of the centrally sponsored schemes, plus the 10% of the FFC. And with this money, we can create enough. This thing. Dr. Reddy did a very good study on this. Then we had the Kerala concept of voluntary technical core, and with Government of India, they call it cluster facilitation. Civil society organizations and local NGOs help panchayats do a plan. A great idea, which is pushed by no less a person than the Prime Minister himself, but that didn't somehow catch on. Even now it's pushed, is the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. If all the students, right from IIT, IIM, social work students, management students, and graduate students go out into the panchayats, even if it be a survey, even if it be a mapping, there is a huge potential. Now coming to the capacity building for all this, I would say when we went to Delhi, NRLM had started in 2009. And we found even 2012, late 2012, we had no solution how to take the SHGs across India. Then the NRLM people, particularly led by Mr. T. Vijayakumar, hit upon the idea of a resource block. It's a hub and spoke model. Invest all your energy, resources in a block and prepare an ideal kind of SHG system. And they spread to the neighboring blocks. And we had a roadmap by which we calculated in 8 years, India can be fully saturated with good quality SHGs. A similar strategy is required. And my experience in Kerala told me, not now, right in there, I thought about 1/3 of the village panchayats are quite good. And one-third are average, and one-third are below average. I used to joke, the one-third of the bottom one-third will be worse than the worst kind of panchayat governance systems anywhere in the world. At the same time, one-third of the top one-third will be outstanding, better than any other governance development institution in the world. So we nurture them. And from the beacons, we have a resource panchayat and we go. And demand-based kind of training. Add to this is e-governance, and a huge potential which has been created but which is unused is the BharatNet, which has reached half the number of panchayats. And this current days of reliance on IT, electronic communication, BharatNet is there. Add to this some appropriate administrative management systems. It's not simple. All our systems are designed for centralized governance. Now, for decentralized governance, we need a different administrative system. Even Kerala has not been able to do that in spite of lot of efforts. But probably Kerala would have reached about 25, 30% in that. Because it needs to have participation, it needs to have transparency, accountability, due process, the core features of good governance, but structured in a simple way which the local persons can understand, which will not permit cheating or other moral hazards. It's a challenge. It's more a dream. I don't think anywhere we have examples. And then social accountability, which is natural in the Panchayat Raj. I would even say social accountability is a raison d'etre of giving powers to local government. Yes, you are naturally accountable and you can't run away from people. You can structure it. There are so many beautiful social accountability measures, and local government associations would add to the this kind of thing. So this is a scenario of the Panchayat Raj I have. To conclude, constitutional amendment, Mr. Manishankar Iyer is strongly against it because he strongly feels, probably rightly, that if constitution is opened up, it will be only to take away powers, not to give more powers. I also have that fear. But there is a 50% reservation for women, 2 10 years for reserved seats. Some consensus is emerging. Actually, there is a constitution bill prepared by the Ministry of Panchayat Raj. With little bit of push, it can do that. Then we need a technical exercise, which I would have expected a finance commission to do, an assessment, a very scientific, rational assessment of a probable fiscal domain of a Gram Panchayat in India. What can be their resource raising powers? I strongly believe a local government cannot exist with just grants coming out. They have to, because for accountability reasons, they need to do. The government needs to tax. Then many of you are here listening. So I see Mr. Jyoth Chathakulam, Dr. Reddy, who is now in the India Panchayat Forum and all that. Some citizens report on status of Panchayat. Like for social, this thing, the CST has done it, or there's an alternative economic survey. A citizens report probably has some this thing to set the agenda. Of course, it can be done post-COVID. Then a parliamentary committee on local governance. You have a parliamentary committee for Ministry of Panchayat Raj. That is not enough. But there is a parliamentary committee on gender, women, which is very active. I myself have been pulled up several times there. So a parliamentary committee on local governments, which cuts across political departments so that some MP understands local government. And another big dream I have is if we could achieve GST, where states have given away their fundamental resource raising powers with happy, with very, I don't know, I was laughing to myself, but I thought I don't understand public finance. So states are taking great decisions. Absolutely foolish decisions they have taken. Probably after 5 years, it may not be so foolish, but now it is foolish. If they could take that, because it was intelligently structured, finance commission, ministers meeting, led by a very eminent opposition finance minister, and then they structure this. So if something happens for local governments, if GST can be achieved, some kind of local governance is also possible. I also feel for certain things like finance commissions not being constituted, DPC is not doing things, a PIL, though these days people are not very enamored of PIL because justifiably so, that will be do. Let me end with a plea that there is no developed country in the world without elected local governments, which perhaps is the biggest reason for pushing for strong local governments. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. And as all of you have heard, uh, when sir has actually given us the path ahead for us also, with so many phrases and terminologies, and which are all leading to actions, or which are all supposed to lead to actions in various ways, whether it is academic, whether it's in practical, it's action. So each phrase and words sir has used in every sentence are all action oriented for all of us. Thank you, sir. The path ahead you have actually opened for all of us. Now, I request Dr. Reddy uh, to give your response, especially now that you are after your tenure in the civil service, you are now into the civil society movement also for Panchayati Raj, as I understand. So, over to you, sir. In various capacities, you can talk.
Thank you, Dr. Joy, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. And good evening, friends. Uh, every time I hear Mr. Vijayanand gives me a ray of hope on panchayats. So it is always rejuvenating, and then commit ourselves to move forward. Though uh, uh, not very much has happened. We cannot say that nothing has happened. It's like a half glass empty, half glass full after 28 years. So there is a positive ray of hope to take them forward. I I would like to compare 28 years aged youth uh, with, of course, the age of the panchayat system in the country. I think 28 years is very critical, crucial age where an youngster would have completed his or her education, looking forward to take off, start his own, fly into his own world. So similarly, I think the panchayat, we cannot say that they have attained that much youthfulness, but I think it is critical age the panchayat should take off. Of course, in evolving the institutions, 28 years is not very long journey. It takes a pretty long time in the evolution of the institutions, strong institutions, and especially with the panchayats where very few proponents or champions of the system. But still, there is a lot of hope. And I think the COVID has given us lessons how, let us say, the crisis should not be managed without proper decentralization. There are a lot of positives, and the panchayats, as Mr. Vijayanand has rightly mentioned, panchayats have come to forefront in their own way, not without any much of hand holding, on their own way. That they were compelled to take the initiatives, take steps, and manage the local issues in terms of public health, in terms of sanitation, in terms of taking care of maybe in a small way the migrant population, and so on and so forth. So it has given us, I think it has given a great learning for everybody to realize that the way forward for us, the India, to become really developed country is to really decentralize. Unfortunately, the present circumstances are not that encouraging for that approach. But it has to happen if we have to take a leap and become the developed country. I'm sure that without the panchayat strengthening, without the giving adequate position, adequate proper niche for the panchayats, we cannot move forward. Well, I'm not getting into what we have achieved in the last 28 years. As I said, it's like a halfway full and halfway empty. And at this juncture, whatever I think Mr. Vijayanand has mentioned, the limitations of the government's initiatives, wherever certain things have happened where there is a local champion, there was a local champion, proponent of the system. Through the government, of course, the flow is very slow and may not be wholeheartedly convinced about the decentralized system, decentralized governments, third tier of the government. But wherever the local champions have appeared and made it possible, you take Kerala or you take Maharashtra, wherever success story spots, the spots are there, we see the local champions. So I feel strongly that, as usual approach, the top driven, the ministry and then the government of India and the state governments driven approach, it will continue, but it is not going to hasten up the process of really creating these local self-government institutions. And I think it is high time that we, maybe whatever the limited number of champions, I think we have in a way come together under the banner of IPF, started by the mission Samruddhi. I think we have to look for new strategies, new approaches for catalyzing this whole process. And we cannot afford to lose further time. So these alternative strategies can catalyze the whole process, whatever the prescription Mr. Vijayanand has given. Within the limitations, there are a lot of things that are possible. So that these alternative strategies can really put these local governments, third tier of the local governments, in the forefront, in a major position where everybody will look forward. I think in my 5 to 6 years of experience in association with the panchayat system, there are people looking towards panchayats. But only doubt I have is whether that panchayats have that absorption capacity of the new ideas, absorption capacity of the things that are flowing from. Like all the ministries are looking for spending the money in a better way, like let us say Ministry of Sanitation and Drinking Water and so on and so forth. Though in some way it has happened, but not to the greatest satisfaction. So I think the second thing is, one is looking for alternative strategies of creating that that cloud, enough size of the nucleus so that it can add on to its own strength, creating that absorption for new ideas, absorption that they are the leaders, absorption of the idea that they mean something. In fact, the moral of the sarpanches, which I started going to some of the panchayats after my superannuation, their moral is not that great, that high, that self-esteem is not there. So should we go for maybe a creating an approach to bring that self-esteem, that he is a leader, he's a leader for his panchayat, or she's a leader for that panchayat. That self-esteem, that can trigger taking up of a lot of activities in that front. And I think we had been trying, and I feel that we should accelerate the effort of the Indian Panchayat Foundation to take up more and more activities. Hatke, not in the line of the government, but along with the government in a new areas where government cannot do or government is not able to do. And I think those approaches can also help. And as everyone realized that India cannot really become developed without the local development, and the COVID has given us a shocking treatment especially in the area of the migrants moving back and finding work, not finding work, the sufferance, and so on and so forth. So only local government and the strategies for promoting the local development can only take us far to become the developed country. So this is what I feel. We should look for alternative strategies of creating those champions, more and more champions among the panchayat leaders. There are already large number, but we have to add on to that and promote these alternative strategies. So once again, I thank Kila for giving me this opportunity, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Actually, your own transformation from a total civil servant to the capacity builder to finally the civil society, all things have been reflected in your talk today, I think. Thank you, sir. Dear friends, we can actually have around 5 questions or 5 responses to the entire thing. I mean, may I request Dr. Chatokulam is here. Can you, I mean, if you have your queries or if you have a comment to make so that both of them can respond?
Yeah, I would like to appreciate yeah, Sri Vijayanand and Dr. Reddy.
Because I mean, there are two
Yeah.
two platforms there opened actually. One.
Yeah.
You can switch off one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. For an excellent, yeah.
Okay. Please unmute.
Yeah.
Okay, you can continue.
Yeah, Doctor. After a few minutes, that is fine. Yeah.
You're okay now.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, fine. I would like to appreciate the presentations and the comments on that. I have a very particular question. See, can we suggest all government institutions and agencies, line departments at Gram Panchayat level, at the village level, to the Panchayat, to the local government at that level? And the same situation at the block level, at the intermediate level, we have a taluk office and we have a different system of government that give all the institutions, government officers, line department, and all the government officers to the on the middle level panchayat. The similar situation at the district level. Why we need a parallel set of administrators starting from the village, and the same thing at the block level and same thing at the district level. Instead of that, can you think about a kind of a single local government at different levels and giving all kind of institutions, government, parastatal, all institutions merging to the Panchayat Raj institutions at that level? Why we need a parallel set of administration? Parallel means not parallel institutions, parallel set of governments at different levels. That actually we expect from the decentralization or at the local government at these levels. Can you think about some kind of revolutionary kind of thinking as far as this is concerned? This is my request, and I would like to get a response from Sri Vijayanand and Dr. Reddy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jose. Sir, would you like to respond now or towards the end?
At the end, after taking the
end. So we can go for the second question. I mean, there are so many people lined up here. Can Sri Thomas George is around, I find. Would you like to come in? Thomas George?
Yes, Joy.
Okay.
I'm here.
Thank you. You are from Washington at the moment, I hope.
I'm in New York. Yeah, I work.
New York. Okay. Please.
No, it was such a pleasure to hear Mr. Vijayanand speak on the 73rd Amendment. and I really enjoyed his talk. It's been a while since I heard him. One pointed question I have on the role of Panchayati Raj and the way forward is, I know that initial days we used to say that corruption is less when Panchayati Raj is there, corrupt. But then, how can we have or think of a Panchayati Raj system where there is nil corruption going forward? I think that's a question which I have for Mr. Vijayanand today. Over.
Thank you. Thank you. Sir, Michael sir is here. Sir, are you online? I find Mr. Michael Vedramani here.
So, okay. Good evening to one and all. It's a great pleasure to listen. Of course, my experience was only with Wayanad. So I would say that Indian mind per se is too centralized. That is very evident. Decentralization will not have come of its own. It has never come. Even in Kerala, with lot of force, it has come. So in other parts of the country, when you look into, though we desire that decentralization should come, but centrally we are all, I think, too powerful to be, maybe it's a biological reaction that I have to dominate. Like the MLA would not like to give the power to the down below, the MP would not like to give it to. I can take an example of the cabinet minister would not give enough powers to the state minister of his own. That being the culture, in the decentralized approach is a very, very challenging factors. Kerala has shown a good model because like what we have done in COVID 2018, what we have done in our disasters. So there's a potentiality, but we have to make our own pathway. I think local leadership may not be there because now local leadership in the panchayat also what has happened, unfortunately, politics has entered. Of course, without politics, democracy cannot function. So I think there's a bright future, but I think the people at the top, the parliament, as well as the legislative have to give the powers to allow this local administration to sustain and survive. And all the more the very important role the Panchayat Raj system has to play, I would say straight with Mr. Vijayanand also touched upon on the environmental. What I had the water when I was a schoolboy in my village, today it is not there, as simple as that. So on the environmental issues, I think the local administration has to play a very, very, very important role because they alone can feel it and respond it. Thank you very much for this opportunity, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now we have Mr. Ram Pappu from the Mission Samarthi and the India Panchayat Foundation. Ram, are you there?
Good evening. Yes, Dr. Joy, am I audible?
Yes, yeah.
I just wanted to share an interesting program that both of us attended this morning, and you were an expert speaker in that.
Yes.
The day started with a very good newspaper article that I read in the Hindu. First thing, I have a cup of coffee and I was reading an article written by a prominent upcoming political leader, our lovable Kamal Hassan. And he's, of course, now spearheading with M&M party. But what was really surprising, the clarity of thought when he's batting for Panchayat Raj, especially for the resurgence of the Gram Sabha, was very motivating and very encouraging. So the article was very well written, of course, and he's been doing a lot of work in that space. So for this gathering here, I would just want to share. Today, there was a meeting of this political party. He launched an event, as many events, and as we are doing right now, as Dr. Joy is doing this event. There was an event from, I think, 11 o'clock, Dr. Joy, 11 o'clock. It went on till 1:30, where they had about, their entire party functionaries are all there. But there were 8 resource people. There were Ilangoji was there, Dr. Joy was there, Dr. Padinure ji was there. What was encouraging was he let all the resource people speak. He was not talking at all. It was a very welcome sign. He heard everybody, and everybody presented their thoughts. Very lot of powerful thoughts were there. There was Dr. Ponraj was there talking about Pura. And then, of course, he finally shared his vision. And of course, he's echoing the same thing that Vijayanand ji and Dr. W. Reddy and what Dr. Joy was saying. And he took the opportunity that we should all visit Kerala and we should learn from the Kerala experience and we should go ahead and we should sing. And there were very good concepts of subsidiarity. Principle of subsidiarity was discussed at some length, which is very encouraging. Anyway, that apart, what I wanted to speak today was just share with saying what Vijayanand, we are actually honored. We are working very closely with Vijayanand and Dr. W. Reddy, and we have taken their advice and their direction forward. So I'm happy to share that the cluster development model that Vijayanand and Dr. Reddy have instituted and designed, with all inputs coming from various civil society organizations and grassroots change makers through a process of design thinking, has actually taken shape. And today I'm happy to say that it's touching 40 clusters. It's growing. It's touching 40 clusters in 8 states. 1 week ago, it was about 6 states. Now, Tamil Nadu, we have launched Tamil Nadu, 6 clusters. Whom did we launch it? We have launched it with Nallur Vattam. Who is Nallur Vattam? A beautiful voluntary civil service organization, okay, Gandhian organization, with youth following the Kalam model. They believe in the Pura and all that. And now they are partnering. We are partnering with them. 6 clusters. And today even Balu Ayya was there, Dr. Joy. You
Yes.
heard him today morning, right?
Yes.
Jammu, Kashmir and Rajouri, we are doing 3 clusters. So I just wanted to reaffirm that Vijayanand is the path ahead. One of the approaches is going ahead with a model of, with a framework of holistic and sustainable development, with real life examples of solution providers who have solved different problems. If you can just let me for a second and share, I want to share one screen on one slide, if I can do that.
Yeah, please.
I will not take more. Can you see this?
It's just coming. Okay.
Is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, this is the community development framework. As Dr. W. Reddy ji was saying, here there are 7 facets to development, holistic development. There's personal development, starting from the person in the village. Why should I be motivated? How can I be motivated? How can others be motivated? What are the elements that go into personal development? Growth mindset, personal value, behavioral change, cultural heritage, imparting constitutional values. Then social development, we know integrated education, health, nutrition, village, social justice, citizenship participation, gender equality, women empowerment. And this is, by the way, this is not a cast in stone. This is evolving. More and more elements are getting added into it. Economic development. Agriculture, how can we improve the income of a small farmers? Government will tell you why Kisan credit card is important, why organic farming is important. But what is a model to actually do it where you can increase the income of the farmer from 2,000 rupees per acre per month to 20,000 rupees per acre per month? There are tested models. The question is, can we wire these models and bring it into the cluster? So again, SHGs, we talked about SHGs, farmer producer organization. And Vijayanand in one of our design thinking workshops added this 4th element, D4, ecological development. Ecological sustainability. How are we protecting our resources? Water, soil, sanitation, solid waste management, plantation, forestry. There are wonderful models. And D5, D6, D7, we call institutional development, planning, governance, execution, stakeholder management. In other words, in corporates, all of us, we bring in the agility of doing project management and planning and costing and risk management. How can we bring this into the GPDP in the same sense of rigor? So this is a framework, and these are all the partners. You see, there are so many organizations. There is no problem in India that has not been solved, right? So different partners are bringing in best practices and SOPs for different aspects of it. If we can bring in this best practice of all these models and wire it into this framework, this is community development framework. How will we go into the cluster? Through the cluster development program. What is the cluster development program? One cluster is 5 gram panchayats, 20,000 population contiguous by watershed, preferably in the same administrative block. Put in a young fellow there as a cluster coordinator. Otherwise, work with a local organization who is very strong in that area, a local NGO, and take this cluster development process forward as a catalyst, so that this over a 3-4 year period, that institution of panchayat will become sustainable and developed holistically. This is a practical model. The more and more every day I'm speaking to different foundations, they're believing in it, they're making sense out of it. And Gujarat, we are signing up with a like-minded foundation called SRLC, a giant foundation there, who are doing fantastic work in Dharampur. Now we are signed up 4 clusters with them, right? So this is a thing that is emerging, and this is one way of taking it forward. I will just stop with that. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and it's wonderful to be with Vijayanand and Dr. W. Reddy and Joy, sir. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll stop it.
Thank you, Ram. So this has been very productive, and especially we need to celebrate Panchayati Raj, connect through and for Panchayati Raj, and catalyze for empowering Panchayat Raj. I think that is what you meant by celebrate, connect, and catalyze. It was written in a small letters on your PowerPoint. Hope
That's right.
that's what
Right.
you.
It is all about celebrate,
Yeah.
celebrate all people who are doing
I
great
noticed
work,
it. I noticed
connect,
it.
connecting with each other and catalyzing by seeding in models and then trying to scale this. That scale is now slowly happening, sir.
Can I have Jagajeevan talk and then Mini Sukumar? Jagajeevan, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, please.
Actually, to the Reddy sir and Vijayanand sir, you see in the Kerala scenario, what they realize that the efficiency of our Panchayat bureaucracy is very poor. Their professional efficiency, how we can upgrade their professional efficiency through a very strong capacity building plan. That is very important now. You see, most of our Panchayat political leaders are very dynamic and visionary. But unfortunately, our local bureaucracy, their efficiency is very low level because of the higher level bureaucracy. How we can address?
Okay. Thank you, Jagajeevan. And Dr. Mini Sukumar is still there?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's very happy to be part of this discussion celebrating Panchayat and Panchayat Raj in our country. And I actually want to respond, not responding, it's only a comment. Vijayan sir already shared his happiness to for the women. Self-help groups are becoming a partner of the local self-government in Kerala, and this network of self-help groups that Kudumbashree has been evolved as a secondary implementation system of Panchayat Raj in Kerala, and we are witnessing that success story or the successful model of that implementation process during this COVID crisis. And as I have witnessing this sort of changes and this process for the last few years. And one thing is, one concern is that I want to share one concern that this system of women's network has been evolved as a secondary implementation system or a successful implementation system for our local self-government. But how far we can empower them to be part of this decision-making process, or how far we can upgrade their capacity to become partners of this decision-making process, and how far we can enhance their efficiency, like people who are involved in that process. Now we are seeing that they are mainly because they are taking the orders and they are implementing the things successfully. So what we can do in our next phase, what should be our strategy for that process?
Thank you, Dr. Mini. Now I would request Dr. Reddy to respond, and then finally we will have the concluding remarks and the responses from Vijayan sir. Over to Dr. Reddy. Okay. Okay. Reddy sir, are you there? Otherwise, I will request Vijayan sir to give your responses, sir. Over to Vijayan sir.
Yeah. As you said, 5-6 points have come.
Yeah.
The first point is, that's the ideal thing. All the officers coming under an elected local government, but knowing the situation, having lived through it, it looks extremely, extremely remote. But some states, I saw Rajasthan earlier, have done this kind of a village parliament, village secretariat, where the panchayat leads. Karnataka is doing it very well. All departments come, they are not under the panchayat, but they sit together. That gives a position power to the village. So that is the closest which we can think of in the near future. Then Thomas George raised an interesting question. But my understanding, my feeling, let me be very frank, in Kerala, corruption has increased from 97 on a upward path, but it is still less than corruption of centralized agencies. There's no doubt about it. But my understanding is local government corruption is easier to tackle if there is a will, because there is a natural accountability. Then very interesting, as I mentioned, social accountability measures are there, with government slightly cracking the whip and bringing in institutions. Local government corruption can be brought down substantially, for which we need the Gram Sabha plus the concept which we forgot after our initial enthusiasm, the voluntary technical core. Because most corruption comes from bureaucratic greed. That can be got rid of through civil society experts, retired people working formally in the local government. Then my friend Michael raised this very important cultural trait of Indians. We are all centralized. There's no doubt about it. Even as an IAS officer, I felt that I can solve problems. It's not that easy, but I think over time, when you work with these kind of things, particularly SSGs, panchayats, this things comes down. Then in a state like Kerala, it's not replicable elsewhere, because since political parties are cadre based, and they have to, I don't think very few persons in Kerala can win by their name. They have to have their cadres to support. So that will strengthen, because your cadres down below. But rest of India, I think the centralizing thing will be there for quite some time. Then I fully support Rampapu's community development framework, which we all collectively brainstormed for a day or two. And it's as he said, it's a work in progress. But this cluster idea was something which I was telling, resource panchayats or beacons, and we can only expand on a hub and spoke model. So let us invest. And now I think fortunately, Dr. Reddy was aiming at 100, but now it's gone much beyond. But we really developed that. And the state partnership is very important, because they need to take it to other states. That is how National Livelihood Mission now I think has nearly 1 crore, or at least 80 lakh SSGs, starting from few lakhs. So that is the kind of thing. Then a very important point of panchayat bureaucracy, how do you build the capacity? I have a lot of regrets in civil service. I don't want to express comments. One of which is I failed to convert the Gram Panchayat bureaucracy into a development bureaucracy. So we don't have to reinvent, just go back to the community development days. Just take the community development syllabus of the Gram Sevaks and the BDOs. They are available in that Gurgaon Institute. Probably National Institute of Community Development only became NIRD. It will be available. So you rework that. The most important part was, in modern terms, it is called immersion. You just go and stay in a poor locality for a long time and do things. I know the best Gram Sevaks of Kerala, whom I had the fortunate to work with in the early part of my career, were all trained in Gandhigram. And they used to explain. At that time, I was not wise to take down everything, but when explained, they had to clean the toilet at 5 o'clock in the morning. And they start with all the simple principles of rural reconstruction, which Gandhi stated. That is one way of professionalizing. The other way is to induct young professionals, like the Prime Minister's Rural Development Fellows for 3 years, 4 or 5 years, not a permanent job, and they go away. But the current setup, the bureaucracy will have a kind of a way of throwing them out, this thing. Then, yes, how to make, the last point was how to make the SSGs a part of the decision making. Very simple. SSGs will be the building blocks, which came out in the last workshop organized by GIFT and Kila. The SSG should be the building block of the Gram Sabha. So when they are the building block of the Gram Sabha, they will not be just taking on responsibilities and earning burden. They can demand, because they are in a majority in Kerala in about maybe 70-80% of the wards. So these are my quick thoughts. Thanks for all the participation. Now Dr. Reddy is on the line. Yeah.
Just want to add 1 or 2 points. Is a general comment, and I think the constituency for the Panchayat Raj system is a still very small constituency in terms of, let us say, the champions or proponents or believers of this. I think we have to expand that constituency. And that expansion of constituency can be thought of course, from within the government system and from outside the government system also it can happen. Maybe at the school level, college level, and other institutional level, we have to project this institutional arrangement, constitutionally enabled institutional arrangement, so that everybody start recognizing and believing that yes, there is a constitutional body, and that's how we can mop up the support at various levels. And I think even among the training in various levels of civil bureaucracy, the civil servants, I think putting a major element, it is now there but not that good enough. Putting more and more of Panchayat Raj training can create a constituency of promoting our friends of the Panchayat, constituency of friends of Panchayat. I think that is going to be going to work in a long way. And third point is, of course, corruption, as already stated, relative. It is a relative phenomena. We cannot say that completely off. But I think the major problem which we have to be alive is the impact of the effect of money and other forces in terms of elections, even in the local body elections. It is really becoming a major monster at Panchayat level.
Disconnected. I think Dr. Reddy has gone.
Yeah, it is disconnected.
Disconnected. Okay. So probably we'll conclude here. First of all, let me thank Vijayanand sir for being part of this. It's not only just motivating, but he has given a lot of points for all of us to work on. And one important thing is that we need to connect with each other to take this forward. So it's not just Kila alone which has to be there. We need to work together to move forward, where we all should come together, take upon each of these points mentioned during this discussion, and then we have enough for us on our plate to move forward to empower Panchayat Raj in the country in this 28th year of anniversary of 73rd Amendment. Thank you, sir, for being with us today. Thank you, Dr. Reddy. As always, he responds to all our invitations and he is right back whenever he's required. And now that he's part of the Panchayat movement as such, in a non-official, this thing. So we look forward to you for further joint actions in future. Thank you, sir, for being with us. We had a long list of dignitaries with us. All of them could not talk today, but because we had planned it as a short, brief session because of all these COVID restrictions and all. But still, I would like to thank Mr. Thomas George joining us from New York. Then we had Dr. Michael Vedashiromani, who was part of the Rajiv Gandhi National Institute earlier and other things, and also finance commissions. Then we had Dr. Mini Sukumar, we had Jagajivan, Mr. Ram. Actually, he's another champion for Panchayati Raj. And of course, Jose Chatukulam has always been. I find that all these years he has been single-handedly, doing this work. Without any publicity, and also all of them, I don't want to name one and each one of them, but all of them have been very supportive in this endeavor. Thank you all. And then the large group of participants who have joined through various platforms today. Thank you all for this. We will actually get this transcribed and then circulate it for all of us, so that your comments can also be included in a later version of this document coming up. Thank you all once again. Thank you. Good night.